Tonight on Let It Rip.
This is about the next chapter in Michigan. This is about opportunity for all, no matter who you are, and being inclusive in that.
A big celebration in downtown Detroit as officials announced that the Cobo Convention Center is getting a new name. But will that name change heal the racial wounds of the city's past? But first,
how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. Who the would make something like this up?
Tonight, Chicago police say Jussie Smollett would. Tonight, the Empire actor goes from self-proclaimed hate crime victim to criminal suspect, accused of trying to pull off an elaborate hoax. Time to let it rip. On the panel tonight, the pioneering politician who started her career as the mayor of Southfield and is now a congresswoman in Washington. From Michigan, Brenda Lawrence is back. And so is a therapist, talk show host, weekly contributor to Fox 2, the people expert, Dr. Sabrina Jackson. Next to her, the co-founder of the Tanner Friedman strategic communications firm with a long list of clients, public and private. Don Tanner is ready to rumble. And so is Ron Edwards, talk show host, commentator, conservative Republican, and Donald Trump's biggest fan. As always, anchor, reporter, and president of his own law firm, Charlie Langton. Look, we can laugh right now, but this is some frightening things. This is a big scandal. Some people are hurt tonight. Some people are angry. What are you thinking, Brenda?
You know, it's so many emotions that run through what we're hearing being played out. First of all, for any black gay man in America, the hurdles and the challenges that they have, to have the disrespect and this just unbelievable act. And I agree with Jussie when he said, who would make something up like this? But the reality is, it says due process. Now, there has been allegations that what he said isn't true. If they're not true, what he did, shame on him. And I'm hurt. I can imagine the gay black man that was out there trying to get the courage to live his real life is going to back up because of all of these emotions. It's really disappointing.
And indeed, he is not guilty until proven otherwise. But you have to wonder, Dr. Jackson, what impact this will have on the real victims of racial and homophobic violence.
We already have a society where we re-victimize the victim. That's what we do off the rip. We will re-victimize the victim. So when the victim comes clean and says that this happened to me, most people will say, well, you shouldn't have worn that, or you shouldn't have. Like when he first said it, they said, well, what were you doing on the subway by yourself, and you're an actor and a popular person and a celebrity by yourself, things of that nature. So we look for reasons to not believe the victim.
And I hear from TMZ, and frankly, they are right more than they are wrong. They said that Jussie Smollett appeared before the entire cast of Empire tonight and said, y'all know I didn't do this. It's not true. But I wonder if his career is over, no matter what happens.
Yeah, he may turn out to be a better actor than any of us thought. You know, you hope for the best in this situation. Possibly, we have a lot of answers. He is still innocent until proven guilty. We tend to rush to judgment in this country much too quickly. But if he did indeed do this, he'll need to answer some questions as to why. Is it a mental health issue? What was behind it? Explain himself, and in time apologize, and let some time pass.
Well, you know, from the beginning, there were questions about what really happened that night. In fact, we wondered if it was really a hate crime or a hoax. Smollett was interviewed by ABC's Robin Roberts, and the tears started to flow just a few days ago.
If the attackers are never found, how will you be able to heal?
I don't know. Let's just hope that they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not go there yet. Let's, I was talking to a friend, and I said, I just want them to find them. And she said, sweetie, they're not gonna find them. And that just made me so angry, because, so I'm just gonna be left here with this?
In that same interview, he identified a grainy image of two people on a Chicago street as his attackers. He also said that those two attackers at the time were white. He said that they shouted racist and homophobic slurs at him. He also said they shouted, "This is MAGA country."
Well, I don't think you're going to hear "This is MAGA country" very often in the city of Chicago, considering that it's over 90% Democrat, And if the guy is guilty of all of this, I think he needs to go under the jail. Because there is, everyone has said, there are so many victims of so many things in this country. And for someone to use something, a platform like that, to bring all this attention to himself, and I read that allegedly he was upset over his pay per episode.
Police say that the reason he staged this attack was because he was not being paid on the same level as the other stars of Empire. That was the motive, apparently, that came from the testimony provided by the two brothers before the grand jury. And that's also an important question, too, Charlie. Jussie Smollett is now charged with a felony in this case, but the two brothers who also, according to their own testimony, participated in the plot are not charged at all. Why?
Because the prosecutor needs witnesses, and those are the two best witnesses in this whole situation. These are tough cases, these to defend, these false police report cases, because there's always some motivation behind it. Even though the prosecutor doesn't have to show motivation, they probably will, but they've got a paper trail, they've got witnesses, they've got this guy's crying testimony that they can use. The jury is not going to be all that sympathetic to somebody that says what he says, and then the prosecutor will say it's all a lie. So he's going to have a very difficult time trying the case. But I think he's got a problem. There's a mental issue here. He's depression. I don't know if I agree. I want him in jail. I want to get this guy help. I mean, here's a guy. He's a young guy. I'm assuming he's got no criminal record, and he concocts this story. He's sick. And it appears he's innocent right now.
But
I don't want to rush to judgment either. Well, but if it's all true, he needs some help.
Well, I should point out that, yes, he did lie to police back in, I think, 2007, 2009. He had a run-in because of a DUI. He apparently lied to police about who he was. He claimed to be his brother. And so,
and a lot of people do that.
Yes, he has lied before, but this is on an entirely different scale, though. And then there's the question of the MAGA hat. You know, we have the case of a 15-year-old boy, Nick Sandman, who wore a Make America Great Again hat to the National Mall. He was in a confrontation with a Native American right there in front of the Lincoln Memorial. People took this video, looked at his face, and some of them assumed that he was making fun of the Native American. And now that young man is suing the Washington Post and others for $250 million because this video went viral and he became the target of a lot of hate mail.
But what the MAGA hat has become is a symbol of racism. And you know, say what you want about Donald Trump, he has developed a national agenda, a national message, and it is one of divisiveness, regardless of how you put it. And there are people who may not believe the same as Trump, but those who are hatred, the white supremacists, those who are people who want to divide this country, they wear that hat with pride. Now, Donald Trump can step back and say, that's not how I believe, but he has nurtured a culture in this country that he does not try to dismiss.
Do you wear a MAGA hat?
No, I don't own one, but I will say this. How does, I'll just use one particular issue that the president focuses on an awful lot, protecting our borders. Now, people will jump on that and say something like that is divisive. Well, every issue, technically, there's division because of disagreement. But you have to kind of focus on what is right and what is not. In my opinion, it is right to want to protect our borders. And for anyone to sit there and say, well, that's divisive.
And you know what? The Democrats agree with the president 100%, protect our borders. But we do not say, if you are from Mexico or Venezuela or wherever you're coming from, that you are a rapist and a murderer. We do not say, if you're from an African country, it's just one of those whole countries. We do not label people and say, if you are an immigrant, then you're going to rape someone and kill someone. And that's where it gets off point. But when he's talking about border security, we vote to support that, and we have funded it.
But Congresswoman, there have been many, many, many Americans who have been murdered in many ways, in a variety of ways, by illegal border crossers.
There's
now,
more
first
who's
of all,
been murdered by American
citizens. It doesn't matter. See, it's important about one person or 1,000 persons. And every person that has been murdered is just as important. And for all these people, we already have 1.2 million people a year that come in legally. Now, to add in about 700,000 illegals, why are you okay with illegal border
I don't
crossing?
want this to be this debate about immigration, right?
We want to protect the borders. If you look at the budget, we protect the borders. You have to have a system of immigration. This is not a discussion
about immigration tonight. This is a discussion about symbols and whether the symbol of that hat has become a symbol of hate, such that someone who really mentions it can then tell people, oh, look, somebody with a red hat. Now, according to police, there's video of these two brothers buying a red hat at some store, buying the costumes that they used in this supposed attack. So,
because we get more attention. If I'm attacked, put the MAGA hat on. That's going to get all kinds of attention.
Put a white hood on.
And listen, this is an attack.
It's a symbol.
TMZ would cover it, but you put a MAGA hat on there? Oh, now Fox News is going to cover it for sure. We're going to cover it. NBC, all of them are going to cover it because of the MAGA hat. It has become a symbol, good or bad, of hatred, of divisiveness, whatever you want to say. Put the MAGA hat on, you get attention.
And let me tell you this, too. There's celebrities who supported Jussie Smollett from the very beginning. Viola Davis, Shonda Rhimes, many of the Democrats running for president are also doing the same. So did Donald Trump. When Donald Trump heard about it, he said, that's terrible. This should not happen to anyone. And tonight, though, he is demanding an apology. Now, while we're talking about this, there's a real possible crime out there. There's a lieutenant from the Coast Guard who's been charged with collecting weapons, 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and he supposedly has a hit list. Christopher Hassan has supposedly developed a hit list containing the names of prominent Democrats and TV personalities who oppose Donald Trump. Are we missing something?
Well, it's scary, and I think, again, you have to point a finger at the person at the top. I mean, the tone of any organization is set at the top. The tone for this country is set with the president. I don't want to say he is empowering somebody like this, but somebody who is mentally ill, obviously this gentleman must be, he is emboldened at times, I think, by the rhetoric of President Trump. And you see what happens at Trump rallies where there's violence
sometimes against reporters
or other people at rallies, and it's wrong and it's dangerous.
Hatred is the new mental illness.
Well, it seems that people on both sides, though, may have it. And sometimes that...
And they do.
And is that where we are as a country now? That we are so eager to point fingers and to point weapons at each other.
But I don't think that's nothing new. I don't think it's anything new. I think if we look at this country has a history of violence.
As most countries do. I mean, this isn't just in a unique American situation.
We kill more people with guns
than
anyone else.
Oh, that is sadly so true. All right, stay right where you are. Coming up, Cobo Center gets a name change, erasing the name with what some are now calling a racist mayor. But will it really heal the wounds of the past? And can we ever forgive? That debate is next.
The statue will be moved, and we will help to right some of the wrongs that have taken place here for many, many years.
This center being renamed in Black History Month, you're making some more history.
A lot of proud Detroiters celebrating this week and announcing that Cobo Center will officially change its name. Welcome back to Let It Rip with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, Dr. Jackson, Don, Ron, and Charlie. Well, this is an interesting time in the history of the city of Detroit. The Cobo name will be removed. Cobo named after Mayor Albert Cobo, elected in 1950 with the slogan that he would stop the Negro invasion of Detroit's white neighborhoods.
Wow.
Now, we look at that now and consider that hateful and terrible. But back then he won. He won using that slogan. Does this help then to heal the wounds of the city?
No, I think it's a financial benefit for the Cobo or for the center.
Well, Chemical Bank is paying $33 million over 22 years.
Yes, they're spending a lot of money to put their name. So to open it up for a naming opportunity is smart.
It will eventually be called the TCF Center. And the Cobo name will be thrown on the heap pile of oblivion. But does it make us feel better to go back and try to erase?
Most people didn't even know that Cobo was a mayor.
And that's why I think this is kind of a good thing, and that there's an awareness of a history that was damaging to many people, still offensive to, I would think, to most of us. And you know, the people that are taking this over, Gary Torgo and his background in the city, I think it's a great thing.
And some people look at it this way too, because so many of us are younger, did not live at the time that Cobo was mayor, we knew nothing of the history. I did simply because I read about it, but many of the young people did not know about it. And that brings us to this question. Should we then go back and revisit all those parks and buildings named after people who committed crimes of commission or omission?
We would have to change the name of almost everything that we go to.
But this is Cobo Center too, though. This is a symbol of Detroit. This is one of the premier destinations for people around the country. So it's not just a park, and I don't demean parks at all.
And the world for the other show.
And I do think that it's different. I think that Cobo, that area of the city, is very important. And so yes, if it is named after a racist mayor, that apparently by today's standards is a complete racist, no one's going to dispute that, the name should go.
Well, what about the governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, who just a few weeks ago was found to have a photo of a blackface person on his yearbook page from medical school, 1984. There it is. At first he says,
not even that long ago.
That's me, and I apologize, but I don't know whether I was the guy in the Klan outfit or the guy in blackface. A day later he said, no, I'm not in either of those photos. But I did put on blackface years ago to look like Michael Jackson.
Is something wrong with him as a political leader? This, for him to be all over the place, to have a lack of sensitivity of what this means, to not be able to align his political responsibility with this history is more of a reason for him to step down for me.
He refused, and now polls show that even most black voters might support him if the election
I would have a hard time supporting someone that doesn't even, it's me, it's not me now, you know, well, you know, I did it, but I didn't do it then, but I did it another time. He was a grown man when he did this. He was not a college kid. He was 25 years old.
And if you look at the color of the makeup that he had on, I doubt it seriously if he was really trying to look like Michael Jackson.
Oh, no, not in that picture.
Not in Michael Jackson.
No. Not in that picture. Was lighter than us.
No. But that means this question. Do you believe that people can change? And if indeed they can change, should they be forgiven of their sins, for their sins in the past?
If they ask for it. This is the thing. If he's going back and forth about whether it's him or not, in order for you to heal from a thing, in order for you to heal from a thing, you got to be honest about a thing. And so if he hasn't been honest about it, how do you really forgive a thing?
The problem is, I think the Congresswoman is right, is that he didn't handle it the right way. And I think a lot of voters in Virginia, they're worried about, perhaps Democratic voters, worried about electing a Republican governor, too. So there may be some political ramifications there besides all this, too. Let's keep the guy we know. He's a Democrat. He'll be okay. But I do think that people can change, and I think you got to give him a second chance. But I don't like the way he handled this, and for that reason, he is going to be in trouble.
But there's some things that can never change. The great Henry Ford created the dynamo we now know as the Ford Motor Company. But the great Henry Ford was also known as an anti-Semite who blamed the, quote, international Jew for the problems of the world, whose picture was hung above the office of Adolf Hitler. They were friends. And yet his family has done a remarkable job of creating an atmosphere that invites everyone of every color and creed. But there is a history in this country of some of the most well-known and greatest people that we know, but who also have trouble with their racist past.
Huel, we cannot, in my opinion, just focus on that, because if you want to rebuild this country and heal this country and have a prosperous country in the long run, there comes a time where you have to forgive and try to move on. Because the longer that people focus on these old issues, if you notice that certain populations, they focus on these things and they just over and over, generation after generation, and they find themselves bitter, and to become bitter and to complain means to be left behind. by the rest of society. And you have these pockets of society that are left behind because they, in my opinion, remain focused for so much on certain problems.
I think there is a balance. You should never forget what happened in the past, because if you don't, it bears to be repeated. However, with that being said, you talked about the Ford family or the Ford Motor Company. They have made some corrections as it has moved on. So in current day, can we say that the founder of Ford Motor Company is the Ford of today? Absolutely not. So there is a progression that you can embrace and say there has been change. And you talked about symbols. Think about the Confederate flag. If that is waved in front of an African American and you are proud of that, then you're saying you're proud of a time where you were oppressing me. So it does mean something.
Well, in fact, the City Council stopped an Autorama stunt that was planned for later this year because the car featured a prominent flag. In fact, this is one of the stunts from years past, using the General Lee to jump over a barricade. They had planned to use another car in celebration of another...
Autorama, yes. That's the Smokey and the Bandit car.
Smokey and the Bandit car, exactly. But again, they wanted the Confederate flag removed.
And they lied. They didn't do that. The owner, the people that were putting on the Autorama a couple years ago said, "Oh, well, that's the Dukes of Hazzard's car right there. We'll take the Confederate flag off." But they didn't. And so now this year they want to say, "Well, we're going to use Smokey and the Bandit car, which had a Confederate flag on the license plate, which was the license plate of Georgia." The organizers said, "We'll take it off." City Council said, you guys lied once. We don't trust you. It's a divisive symbol. We don't trust you. No Autorama this year. No jump.
Now,
no jump.
I want to say something. The symbol of the Ku Klux Klan, the hood, the whited garb, right? Well, we all know that the Democrat Party was the party of the Ku Klux Klan. If you want to get rid of things that promoted racism, how about going all the way? Let's get rid of the Democrat Party.
But you do understand that the Southern Democrats, the Dixiecrats, left the Democratic Party en masse in 1964 when the Civil Rights Act was signed and became Republicans. Strom Thurmond and all those Dixiecrats and racists who were kicked out of the Democrat Party became Republicans in 1964. That's true, too.
No, that's not all true.
That is mostly true. There are millions of Southern Democrats who became Republicans because of the Civil Rights Act.
Yes.
You've heard from the panel. Now it's your turn. Charlie takes the show on the road.
They're going to change the name of Cobo Center, should they?
No.
Absolutely.
No, because it's like a signature in our community.
Racism is built off of hatred.
But some people say they're changing it in part because it was named after a racist mayor.
Okay, so that's information I didn't know.
Yeah, I definitely heard that too. But, you know, like I said, with everything that's going on with the city, I mean, it's definitely time for a change.
Me being a black woman in Detroit, I don't think that that would be a good look for us to continue that, now that everyone knows that.
Do you think, though, that we can forgive the past if it was a number of years ago, even if it has to do with racism?
I think we can. You know, the biggest thing now is just for everybody just to come together, and I think in large part, we can forgive and forget.
Racism is never too long ago. Whenever it exists, how far back it was, it really matters.
Is there any amount of time that it would take before we can forget the bad part of the past?
I don't think so, because there's still a lot of racism today.
Time for final thoughts, beginning with Tom.
A simple phrase: time can heal all wounds in the right situation and the right circumstances.
Well, I just think that it's important that we do remember our history, so we won't repeat that history. And so we have to also see in this example that we need to educate much more than we are, because there are things that we are going to, supporting, and we have no clue where it comes from.
Congressman.
I think things that taxpayers pay for should be reflective of who we are. And taxpayers pay for Cobo Hall. And so that name does mean something.
I think we as Americans need to focus on the principles that make this country and have made this country the best in the world. And we need to build this country together because we are all Americans.
I want to go back and say we in the media especially should not be so quick to judge. Just because we get a press release saying $25 million lawsuit against this company does not automatically mean that that company doesn't have defenses. We have to be careful and we have to let the facts come out.
I also think it's important that we African Americans and minorities who don't want to be judged simply by the color of our skin should also not judge people simply because of the color of the hats they wear, too.
Yes.
We should try to see each other as individuals and not as some stereotype.
Absolutely.
We all need to learn that. We thank you, panel. We thank you for watching this edition of Let It Rip.
But you can change your...
The Let It Rip discussion continues online. Sound off on Facebook, Twitter, or fox2detroit.com.